Συνάδελφοι, καλησπέρα. Χριστός Ανέστη, χρόνια πολλά σε όλους. Είμαστε στην πρώτη διαδικτυακή μετά την Κυριακή του Πάσχα, ένατη διαδικτυακή εκδήλωση της ΔΟΕ για το 2024, στο πλαίσιο της υλοποίησης των ενιαίων κειμένων της Διδασκαλικής Ομοσπονδίας Ελλάδας. Η απόψινή μας εκδήλωση έχει τίτλο «Επιμορφωτικές ανάγκες των εκπαιδευτικών, παρουσίαση ερευνητικών δεδομένων, διεθνής εμπειρία, συγκριτικές προσεγγίσεις». Και έχουμε την τιμή να έχουμε μαζί την Ελίνα Tsiroga, που θα μας παρουσιάσει και πάλι τα επιστημονικά δεδομένα, τα δεδομένα των ερευνών, η οποία είναι υποψήφια διδάκτορ στο ΤΕΑΠΗ και στατιστική αναλύτρια, και την ευχαριστούμε και πάλι για την συνεισφορά της στις εκδηλώσεις της ΔΟΕ. Αλλά έχουμε τη χαρά επίσης και την τιμή να είναι μαζί μας ο Βαγγέλης ο Γαβριελάτος, πρώην πρόεδρος της Ομοσπονδίας των Εκπαιδευτικών της Νέας Νότιας Ουαλίας στην Αυστραλία, Έλληνας στις ρίζες του, και επίσης μια μεγάλη χαρά και τιμή για μας αυτό, επικεφαλής εκστρατείας της εκπαιδευτικής διεθνούς δασκάλων Go Public Fund Education, ο οποίος για μια ακόμη φορά συνδράμει τη Διδασκαλική Ομοσπονδία σε μια από τις δράσεις της. Να θυμίσω, το ίδιο είχε κάνει και με την προσχολική αγωγή στη Θεσσαλονίκη και με την παρουσία του εκεί, και με την έρευνα που είχε κάνει η ΔΟΕ, είχαν κάνει η ΔΟΕ και ΟΛΜΕ σε συνεργασία με την ΙΑΗ σχετικά με τις μορφές ιδιωτικοποίησης στην ιδιωτική εκπαίδευση, και με την παρουσία του μαζί με τον Μπάτσι Σάλμπερκ, που πάλι είχαν παρουσιάσει σπουδαία δεδομένα για τον χώρο της εκπαίδευσης διαδικτυακά για τη ΔΟΕ. Τον ευχαριστούμε που είναι εδώ μαζί μας και μάλιστα εδώ στην Ελλάδα, και είναι χαρά μας που τον είδαμε και από κοντά, για να μας μεταφέρει τη διεθνή εμπειρία, όχι μόνο στο κομμάτι των επιμορφωτικών αναγκών, αλλά και σε αυτό που όλους μας απασχολεί, την πορεία της δημόσιας εκπαίδευσης και το πόσο την χάνει ή δεν την χάνει στήριξη από τις πολιτικές των κρατών παγκοσμίως πλέον, και όχι μόνο ως ελληνικά δεδομένα. Καλησπέρα, Βαγγέλη. Ευχαριστούμε που είσαι μαζί μας. Θα ξεκινήσει η Ελίνα Tsiroga να μας δώσει τα ερευνητικά δεδομένα. Περιμένουμε να την ακούσουμε με πολύ ενδιαφέρον. Στο τέλος θα υποβληθούν οι ερωτήσεις που θα έχετε καταθέσει μέσα από τον σύνδεσμο που θα βρείτε στο YouTube. Σας ευχαριστούμε που είστε όλοι μαζί. Μια δύσκολη μέρα για την παρακολούθηση μιας τέτοιας εκδήλωσης, αλλά είναι νομίζω πολύ σημαντικό το έργο το οποίο έχει να μείνει για τη Διδασκαλική Ομοσπονδία. Καλή επιτυχία στην εκδήλωση σε όλους.
Καλησπέρα και από μένα. Καταρχήν να ευχαριστήσω πάρα πολύ και για την πρόσκληση να είμαι εδώ σήμερα και να μιλήσουμε για τα αποτελέσματα αυτής της έρευνας για τις επιμορφωτικές ανάγκες των εκπαιδευτικών, αλλά και γενικότερα να ευχαριστήσω τη ΔΟΕ για όλη αυτή την ευκαιρία, γιατί έχει γίνει μια πολύ μεγάλη ερευνητική δουλειά και είναι τα αποτελέσματα που βγαίνουν και σε αυτή την έρευνα και σε προηγούμενες που έχουμε συζητήσει, είναι πάρα πολύ ενδιαφέροντα, και είναι πολύ σημαντικό το ότι υπάρχει ο χώρος να δίνεται φωνή στους εκπαιδευτικούς να καταθέτουν τις απόψεις τους. Θα ξεκινήσω να κάνω ένα share. Ένα λεπτάκι. Να δούμε αν φαίνεται σε πλήρη οθόνη. Αλλάζει κιόλας.
Φαίνεται, αλλάζει, ναι.
Τέλεια. Ωραία. Λοιπόν, σήμερα λοιπόν θα δούμε τα αποτελέσματα μίας από τις πανελλαδικές έρευνες που έχει διεξάγει η ΔΟΕ, και αφορά τις απόψεις των εκπαιδευτικών για την επιμόρφωση και τη μετεκπαίδευση. Είναι μια έρευνα που έγινε από τον 5ο του 2022 μέχρι τον 1ο του 2023. Διενεργήθηκε, όπως και οι προηγούμενες, μέσω ηλεκτρονικών ερωτηματολογίων που πήγαν στα email των εκπαιδευτικών της πρωτοβάθμιας εκπαίδευσης, και συμμετείχαν συνολικά 976 εκπαιδευτικοί, και πιο συγκεκριμένα 365 νηπιαγωγοί και 611 εκπαιδευτικοί που υπηρετούν σε δημοτικά σχολεία, που είναι είτε δάσκαλοι, δασκάλες, είτε εκπαιδευτικοί ειδικοτήτων. Τώρα, να δούμε 2-3 στοιχεία για τα δημογραφικά του στοιχεία. Όλη η παρουσίαση έχει συγκριτικά τα στοιχεία νηπιαγωγών και δημοτικού. Το λέω εξ αρχής για να μην το επαναλαμβάνω συνεχώς. Όσον αφορά λοιπόν το νηπιαγωγείο, εντάξει, όπως είναι σχετικά αναμενόμενο, το 97 περίπου % είναι γυναίκες. Αυτό που έχει ένα ενδιαφέρον είναι ότι από αυτές το 35,62% έχουν κάποιο επιπλέον πτυχίο πέρα του βασικού του τίτλου, είτε αυτό είναι άλλο πτυχίο άλλης ειδικότητας, είτε μεταπτυχιακό σε ένα ποσοστό 27%, είτε διδακτορικό σε μικρότερο ποσοστό. Είναι σχετικά ισομερώς κατανεμημένα τα χρόνια υπηρεσίας. Παρουσιάζεται, η αλήθεια είναι, μια συγκέντρωση στα χρόνια από 16 και πάνω, άρα μιλάμε ότι κατά βάση είναι ένα κοινό το οποίο έχει εμπειρία στην εκπαίδευση τουλάχιστον μια δεκαετία. Αντίστοιχα περίπου δεδομένα όσον αφορά την εμπειρία βλέπουμε και στο δημοτικό. Εκεί βέβαια όσον αφορά το φύλο έχουμε μια μεγαλύτερη κατανομή σε άντρες. Έχουμε ένα 33% άντρες, 34% κοντά και ένα 64,5% γυναίκες. Όσον αφορά τις σπουδές πάλι και εκεί ένα λίγο μεγαλύτερο ποσοστό, ένα 48% έχει ένα δεύτερο πτυχίο. Είτε αυτό είναι δεύτερο πτυχίο, είτε είναι μεταπτυχιακό, είτε διδακτορικό. Άρα δηλαδή στους δασκάλους είναι σχεδόν μισά-μισά αυτοί που έχουν απλά το βασικό πτυχίο και έναν επιπλέον τίτλο. Πηγαίνοντας στην ειδικότητα, η μεγάλη πλειοψηφία στο νηπιαγωγείο είναι νηπιαγωγή γενικής αγωγής και ένα μικρό ποσοστό, 11 άτομα, είναι ειδικής. Στο 68 περίπου της 100 υπηρετούν σε νηπιαγωγείο σε πρωινό ωράριο και ένα αντίστοιχα 28,49 είναι στο ωράριο του ολοήμερου και μικρότερα ποσοστά στα τμήματα ένταξης και σε παράλληλη στήριξη. Τα στοιχεία που αφορούν την οργανικότητα είναι σε ένα 30% μονοθέσια νηπιαγωγεία, ένα 69% διθέσια έως τετραθέσια και ένα πολύ μικρό ποσοστό πολυθέσια. Τώρα, όσον αφορά τους δασκάλους αντίστοιχα, εδώ οι ειδικότητες πάλι μεγάλη πλειοψηφία είναι δάσκαλοι, στο 77,58% και δασκάλες, στο 77,58%. Αλλά εδώ έχουμε μεγαλύτερο ποσοστό δασκάλους και δασκάλες ειδικής και έχουμε και ένα 15,88% που είναι εκπαιδευτικοί διαφόρων ειδικοτήτων. Εδώ βλέπουμε μια σχετική ισοκατανομή στις τάξεις. Μικρές είναι οι αποκλίσεις από την α τάξη έως τη σίγμα ταφ και έχουμε και αρκετές συγκεντρώσεις και από διευθυντές, 14% ή άλλες ειδικότητες, και βέβαια έχουμε μικρότερα ποσοστά, 2,3% στην παράλληλη στήριξη, 4% εκπαιδευτικούς που είναι στο ολοήμερο και 3,9% εκπαιδευτικούς που είναι σε τμήμα ένταξης. Στις νηπιαγωγούς το μεγαλύτερο ποσοστό, 91,78%, είναι μόνιμοι εκπαιδευτικοί. Επίσης ένα πολύ μεγάλο ποσοστό, όπως αναμένεται στις νηπιαγωγούς, είναι και προϊσταμένες, γιατί έχουν θέση ευθύνης, δηλαδή γιατί είναι μικρότερα τα σχολεία, περισσότερο ποσοστό είναι προϊσταμένες. Αντίστοιχα στους δασκάλους, ενώ είναι πολύ ίδια τα ποσοστά στους μόνιμους και αναπληρωτές, το 90% είναι μόνιμοι, εκεί οι διευθυντικές θέσεις έχει μόνο το 20,95% από αυτούς που απαντήσανε. Τέλος, αν μιλήσουμε για γεωγραφική κατανομή, η μεγαλύτερη συγκέντρωση βρίσκεται στην Αθήνα, στην περιφέρεια Αττικής, που περιλαμβάνει όλες τις διευθύνσεις της Αθήνας, και στην Κεντρική Μακεδονία, που περιλαμβάνει την Α και Β Θεσσαλονίκης, και περίπου αντίστοιχα στοιχεία στους δασκάλους είναι λίγο περισσότεροι αυτοί που προέρχονται από τη Θεσσαλονίκη, αλλά πολύ μικρά ποσοστά, και λίγο λιγότεροι αυτοί από την Αττική. Τώρα, αν πάμε να δούμε λιγάκι τα βασικά αποτελέσματα της έρευνας, καταρχήν σε ένα πολύ μεγάλο ποσοστό οι νηπιαγωγοί, και αργότερα θα δούμε και οι δάσκαλοι, έχουν παρακολουθήσει κάποιες άλλες μορφές επιμόρφωσης εκτός από τις υποχρεωτικές. Δηλαδή, στην περίπτωση των νηπιαγωγών είναι το 90,68, ενώ στην περίπτωση των δασκάλων είναι το 89,20. Όσον αφορά το τι επιμορφώσεις έχουν παρακολουθήσει, με μικρές αποκλίσεις στα νούμερα, η ταξινόμηση είναι η ίδια. Δηλαδή, στην πρώτη θέση έρχονται οι ταχύρυθμες επιμορφώσεις που αφορούν ενδοσχολική επιμόρφωση, σεμιναριακή, ημερίδες, διμερίδες, που γίνονται με ευθύνη του Υπουργείου. Στη δεύτερη θέση έρχονται τα ΠΕΚ, τα οποία βέβαια έχουν καταργηθεί, αφορούν εκπαιδευτικούς που έχουν περισσότερα χρόνια υπηρεσίας, το οποίο έχει ένα νόημα ακριβώς επειδή είδαμε ότι και το δείγμα μας αποτελείται από εκπαιδευτικούς που έχουν χρόνια υπηρεσίας, άρα έχουν προλάβει τα ΠΕΚ. Στην τρίτη θέση έρχεται οι επιμορφώσεις που διεξάγονται από δημόσια πανεπιστήμια χωρίς χρηματικό κόστος, και αυτό έχει μια σημασία. Και παρακάτω έχουμε τις επιμορφώσεις από ιδιωτικούς φορείς ή από πανεπιστήμια με κόστος. Και αμέσως μετά τη μετεκπαίδευση, η οποία και αυτή έχει καταργηθεί εδώ και κάποια χρόνια, οπότε πάλι μιλάμε για εκπαιδευτικούς οι οποίοι υπηρετούν αρκετά χρόνια και έχουν κάνει μετεκπαίδευση εδώ και κάποια χρόνια. Αντίστοιχα στοιχεία έχουμε και στους εκπαιδευτικούς του Δημοτικού, οπότε δεν βλέπουμε κάποια ιδιαίτερη διαφοροποίηση. Γενικά αυτό θα το δούμε σε όλα τα αποτελέσματα, ότι οι διαφοροποιήσεις είναι πάρα πολύ μικρές ανάμεσα στους εκπαιδευτικούς που υπηρετούν σε νηπιαγωγεία και εκπαιδευτικούς που υπηρετούν σε δημοτικά.
The reasons why people have chosen further education in both cases, kindergarten and primary schools, the main reason is because they want to acquire more knowledge in new fields in education. What we can see clearly from a sample, the need for new knowledge comes first to satisfy personal educational needs and specialization in a specific field of knowledge. These are the first four that are answered. Then we have contact and acquaintances, exchange of views and experiences with colleagues. So an incentive of our colleagues to participate in an educational course is to come closer to other colleagues, peers. And other answers include fill the gaps in basic training, prepare myself for planned changes in the education. And the same percentages can be seen in primary education teachers as well. We don't see any differentiations. What agencies should conduct further education courses? The first answer is pedagogical departments of universities. And then another answer is educational institutions that are exclusively focusing on further education. That means that colleagues believe that university departments should be the primary institutions for further education. And also Greek Teachers Federation comes forth. That means that the federation is trusted to organize this kind of seminars. And below average, we have in-school educational courses or either other private agencies. What colleagues say with regard to educational courses they have attended, they say that they are helped to implement new pedagogical methods and techniques in the class, better understanding of the daily educational process, and remind them of the pedagogical ideas, principles, and practices. They also say that when they have further education, they are helped to communicate better with students, parents, or colleagues, especially when they have students with problems. Colleagues that have answered at 92% believe that further education should come in a framework of a leave. That means that they should not teach and be trained at the same time. They also want it to be free and optional, and others believe that it should be free and imposed. They don't want to have further education during afternoons or weekends. They say they don't wish to have further education in the afternoons or weekends when they don't work at school. 67% of them say that further education should come with a raise in their salary. So both kindergarten teachers and primary school teachers agree on that, and that they should have education courses when they don't work. With regard to duration, 90% of them believe that it should be repeated from time to time and has different topics, and it should be experiential, and 40.59% believe it should be in the form of a crash course. So more or less the results are the same for kindergarten teachers and primary school teachers. So with regard to the content of further education, we had two kinds of questions in the questionnaire, closed answers and open-end answers. The first option for them are pedagogical models, and then we have new sectors and digital media, and at 74% they say that they should have education in topics they choose themselves. 75% believe that they should focus on school courses. Respective percentages we see in primary school teachers. And in primary school teachers, 81% believe that they should be trained on their courses. Now, kindergarten teachers and primary school teachers believe that further education is quite positive in the way they operate within the class, and they also agree that it is not properly supported by the ministry. They also believe that the participation of teachers in training activities alongside the exercise of their teaching and other professional duties leads to burnout. 94.79% of them agree on that in both categories. So the practice with parallel education and work is something that leads them to burnout. in recent years, they agree that the training process has become more and more an economic product with exchange value. They also believe that in recent years, the training process has become more and more an individual qualification with a competitive dimension, and a high percentage believes that a key criterion of the training actions offered to teachers, especially in recent years, is the learning of functional skills. The percentages in both categories are more or less the same for all teachers. Around 96% believe that in recent years all of them agree that the training procedures offered to teachers must guarantee equal and free access to all. 99% of them agree on that. They also believe it's important to link education with qualifications, and they also believe that the education should focus on the revival of educational process. So if we go back to who should be responsible for further education, that is combined with the question of special training schools. 75% of them agree that teaching schools should reopen, and on this agree both categories, kindergarten teachers and primary school teachers. So a lot of them have attended these teaching schools, and so they believe they should reopen. They also say that all teachers should receive feedback every 7 to 10 years by participating in substantial training procedures with exemption from their teaching duties. This is repeated in every aspect of education. We had an open-end question, suggested topics in kindergarten. New technologies come first, special education and crisis management comes third, respectively. In primary school, we have crisis management coming first, new technologies second, and special education, people with disabilities, learning difficulties come third, excuse me. So we see that in primary school, teachers are worried about the behavior of students. And most of them on the suggested topics of education believe that crisis management should be taught, and this is number one in their preferences. They also agree that nowadays, because of incidents of bullying, violence, etc. It is important for teachers to know how to manage this kind of incidents occurring at schools. They also agreed that besides that, they should have some courses in psychology, new technologies, relations with parents, administration, etc. So, but crisis management comes first because they think it includes all the rest. We need to highlight here also that burnout and stress comes first in both categories, so they are issues that a lot of teachers, kindergarten and primary school, are worried. Something quite interesting is what we see here. Administration. In kindergartens, administration is quite high. That has to do with a sample. As we saw at the beginning, a high percentage of kindergarten teachers are head teachers. And from the fact that kindergartens are small and colleagues that are not head teachers today, they will soon become, because 1 out of 3 teachers is head teacher because of the structure of kindergarten. So administration and management comes first in their interest. So this is something that we have already tackled. In order to understand and describe what education means for them, the answer given to specific questions says that further education owes to be organized by educational departments for kindergartens and primary schools. The sample does not clarify if they want to have 3 month, 6 month or annual training, so they are open to smaller or bigger further education sessions. They all believe that education should be repetitive from time to time to help them improve themselves. It is important for them to choose the topics they want to be trained alone. Around 70% of all agree on that. There is a balanced answer with regard to certification of further education. They agree that specialization is important and certification also for them is important. That means that after an educational course, it's important for them to have a certificate. And most of them, 85% of them, agree that further education should be for free. And some of them say if it's not for free, it should be paid by the state. That's from me. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Elina, for your presentation. Well, 13 years earlier, after the closing of the schools of the institutions of teacher schooling, we all see how important that those schools for teacher are considered. So we also see that a lot of colleagues are interested in management. That means that these colleagues experience their job, and at the same time, because of the profile of their schools, are asked to manage those schools. So that is quite stressful for them. That's why they need to have managerial courses or administration courses. Also, we see that because of the bullying that is experienced in many schools today, that is why a lot of teachers want to have crisis management courses. All these are quite important. It shows that most teachers are invited to find solution to issues without special experience or knowledge. So I think the state should understand that. And now we'll give the floor to Angelo Gavrielatos, who will give us an international point of view. He will talk to us about further education and his own program. So we need to see if we are part of a bigger picture or we are alone in our quest. Thank you.
Well, Thanasis, thank you very much for the invitation to join in this special broadcast for your members. And can I congratulate you, Thanasis, also, and Zoe, for this series of lectures that you've organised. I understand some 10 lectures for members of Zoe. That is quite an achievement, and I congratulate you for that initiative. Can I also thank Elina for allowing me to listen into the findings of her survey and the presentation of those results. And before I go any further, can I extend to all of you greetings of solidarity on behalf of our Global Union Federation, Education International, representing 32 million members across 178 countries around the world. Thank you again for letting me join you this evening. Thanasis, you asked the question, or in introducing me, you said that in my presentation, I will let you know whether Greece stands alone or is not unique with regard to the issues before us today. You are not unique. Regrettably, the challenges that I heard reported today through the presentation of this survey can be heard around the world. What I heard from the survey results is in Greece, we have a very dedicated teaching service, Results show that teachers in Greece understand that continuous professional learning, continuous professional development, call it what you like, is not only a right, but it is a responsibility, with the overwhelming majority of teachers saying they want professional development. They need professional development. However, the teachers of Greece are not unique when they're saying that the professional development, the continuous professional learning must be provided by the government, its agencies, for free and during work hours. That came through loudly and clearly in the survey results where your respondents, 92% of respondents said that professional development should be during leave time from work, and not in afternoons or weekends. The fact that governments and your government authorities are not providing these opportunities for free during work hours is an abuse of our teachers. And therefore, it's no wonder that in the report that Elina delivered us, there were constant references to burnout and also references to teachers experiencing overload of work, workload, overload, and an overload or an intensification of work. Unfortunately, in Greece, what we see is that our teachers are overworked, underpaid, and undervalued. It's also no surprise, and you're not unique in this regard, that the priorities that your teachers have identified with respect to the areas needed where more professional development is needed, again, they acknowledge it's a responsibility, but a right that governments have to provide for free in work time, relates to behaviour management. It relates to special education and relates to new technologies. It is the same language that I hear around the world. So congratulations on conducting this survey, because with this survey, I believe that you are better placed to be able to advocate for your members to improve their conditions of work, in this instance, with respect to access, equitable access to free, quality, continuous professional learning in work time. In work time. If I can, more broadly, colleagues, provide you with an overview of the state of the profession globally. I have never been more concerned about the well-being of the teaching profession as I am now. I believe that our teaching profession finds itself in a very fragile state. Around the world, we're seeing significant teacher shortages. Indeed, UNESCO estimates by the end of this decade, we will be experiencing a teacher shortage of more than 44 million teachers. And the teacher shortage is not only impacting poor countries in the global south, in Africa, for example. The teacher shortage is now also impacting the richest countries in the world, for example, Norway, and also my country, Australia, where we're experiencing serious teacher shortages. The reason for it, as I've already said, teachers are overworked, underpaid, and undervalued. And the result of that is an exodus of teachers because teachers are burning out. Teachers are burning out. There are three main reasons where it's experiencing the teacher shortage. And all of these may not be apparent in Greece. But the three main reasons is that teacher salaries in most countries have declined dramatically in comparison to other professions. A dramatic decline in teacher salaries in comparison to other professions. The other reason why we're seeing a teacher shortage is because of workload and the intensification of work, the burnout, as you are experiencing yourself, or the additional administrative burden that is being placed on our schools, our school leaders and teachers alike. The third reason we're experiencing an exodus of teachers is because of what I describe as a total disrespect for the profession, seen in the form of a dramatic increase of teachers in precarious employment, contract teachers. Governments around the world are increasingly employing teachers on contracts. And your country, Greece, is no exception, where nearly 30% of teachers are contract teachers. And why? Because external international financing institutions once put conditions on your country not to employ permanent teachers. These factors result in teachers leaving the profession in numbers that we've not seen before, and as a result of that, experiencing a teacher shortage. Now, whilst the shortage may not be upon you yet in Greece, around the world, it is critical. This shortage is the result, and the pressures on teachers are the result of nearly 3 decades of policies where we've seen austerity measures reduce education budgets and policies denigrating the profession. The constant denigration of the profession has led us to this situation. At Education International, your global union federation, it has been determined that the absolute priority for the union globally is to implement a campaign across the world aimed at achieving a greater investment in teachers and a greater investment in education. An investment in teachers for better pay, an investment in teachers for better conditions, including free, continuous professional learning, professional development in work time, and job security for all teachers. This is the #1 campaign for Education International, and we're building it in countries one after the other around the world. Governments must be held to account for their failures in teacher policy and education policy more broadly that has brought us this crisis around the world. Thanasi, I had hoped that the survey results would have told a different story, but they've told the story, unfortunately, that I have heard around the world. Our teachers are suffering under the weight of disrespect and under the weight of an ever-increasing workload, and thereafter the stress and burnout that all brings. I want to congratulate you for the initiatives that you are taking and your advocacy aimed at improving the lives of our teachers, because ultimately we can only improve the educational outcomes of students if we look after our teachers. Sometimes I get criticised by politicians and policymakers saying that we should emphasise students, we should put students in the centre of everything. I disagree. When it comes to education policy, we need to put teachers at the centre of everything, because without a good supply of well-prepared and well-supported teachers, nothing can work in education. And I'll leave you with this one analogy. When we go into an aeroplane and we're given warnings or travel advice by the stewards, the air stewards, they tell us that in the event of an emergency, a mask will fall down. And the next thing they say is, put the mask on yourself first so you can look after the children and others next to you. Well, for the very same reasons, our governments and policymakers have to turn their attention to look after teachers first, so that our teachers can look after their students. Our teachers, your teachers in Greece, have demonstrated time and time again they want to engage in ongoing professional learning. They want to engage in ongoing continuous professional development. But it's about time that the government pays for it and provides it free of charge during work hours. Thanasi, I'm going to stop there. I think I've spoken enough. There may be questions that may elicit some more information. But again, let me say to you, congratulations on this series of special lectures that you've organised. And I wish you well in your advocacy on behalf of teachers and education in Greece.
Εμείς ευχαριστούμε για την πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα παρουσίαση.
We would like to thank you for this very interesting presentation and for your positions. And we do believe that it is very important that we know that worldwide the challenges are similar to those in Greece. There are some questions. First one. Sometimes we hear from colleagues that in other countries, for example, US, etc., teachers do their job in different conditions. Do you have any idea from your federation what happens in other countries? Is this a job very badly paid? Thank you. This was the first question. As regards Greece, I can give a first answer, and I would say that our federation has the following data. We see more and more people, more and more teachers and educators leaving their jobs. They retire. They want to...
Teachers' salaries have declined relative to other professions. For example, in Australia, historically, teachers' salaries were linked to the salaries of engineers and pharmacists, professions that have similar requirements for qualifications. Teachers' salaries, regrettably, have declined relative to those other professions. At the same time, workload and work intensification has increased. And what we're seeing is a number of phenomena which are very disturbing. Number one, the resignation rate of teachers is higher than the retirement rate. We are losing teachers before retirement rate. Number one. Number two, fewer people, in fact, fewer people are going into teacher education courses to become teachers. There's been a 30% reduction in the number of people wanting to become teachers. And of those who are at university training to become teachers, only 50% complete their courses, because when they go into schools to practice teaching and they see the stress that other teachers are working under, they leave. They do not complete their courses. So this is a global phenomenon that we're experiencing, and it's the direct result of governments failing to invest in teachers, invest in teacher salaries, invest in teachers' workloads, and to invest in education. It's a direct result. So, my answer to your colleague that asked the question, the situation around the world is dire. As I said, the teaching profession has never been more fragile, and that's why we're mounting a global campaign aimed at getting greater investment in teachers and in education. And can I make this one more point, Thanasi, if I can?
Yes.
The teacher shortage crisis, the crisis of the teaching profession, is so great that in September 2022, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, commissioned a high-level panel to investigate and report on the teaching profession. The high-level panel was chaired by former heads of states, ministers, and representatives of Education International and many others. That high-level panel report was released in February of this year. It has 59 recommendations, and the 59 recommendations are very clear. This is not the normal language of the United Nations that is so vague and opaque. The language of these recommendations is very clear about the crisis of the teaching profession. It says clearly, teachers need to be paid a competitive professional salary, governments must address issues of workload, and governments must address issues of precarious employment and stop employing teachers on contracts and, in many countries, unqualified teachers. They must stop. The 59 recommendations also go to the topic of tonight's discussion, continuous professional development. It says, the recommendation says, education authorities, governments must provide continuous professional development that is equitable, free of charge, and during work time. For the answers to the issues confronting the teaching profession, all we need to do is go to this United Nations report, which is co-authored or co-owned by the ILO, the International Labour Organization, and UNESCO.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Τώρα, στη σχέση με το κομμάτι της επιμόρφωσης.
Thank you. Regarding further training of educators and teachers, we saw in this research, as we saw in our introduction, where we presented, when Elina presented the findings, many teachers wish to have the further education.
Some countries provide leave, paid leave, to retrain in certain specialist areas. I'm aware of that, but they have become fewer and fewer and fewer. And that's to the detriment of our systems, because our systems need, as education priorities change, we need to upskill our teachers to be able to meet the current challenges and conditions of work. Unfortunately, I think we've got a lot of work to do to try and rebuild high quality continuous professional development, whether it's of short duration or longer duration. That will depend on the circumstance, but ultimately the opportunities must be available, free, and paid leave or during work time.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Τώρα, το επόμενο έχει να κάνει με το περιεχόμενο της επιμόρφωσης. Διαβάζω το ερώτημα ακριβώς. Από την πλευρά του Υπουργείου, ο όρος επιμόρφωση αφορά στην εκμάθηση λειτουργιών και τη συμμόρφωση ως προς τις εκπαιδευτικές πολιτικές που εφαρμόζει. Μάλιστα, σε αρκετές περιπτώσεις...
The ministry links training with the evaluation of educators. That means, contrary to that, teachers focus on different priority topics. The ministry wants to impose topics, but teachers want to have options. So the ministry believes that they have to decide about what teachers need to learn. Any comment on that?
You know, I spoke earlier about about constant denigration of teachers. But what that demonstrates is a lack of trust in teachers. Where is the trust in teachers? Teachers are best placed to identify the areas of need to suit their own professional development and their contexts. What is relevant for one teacher in one context is not necessarily relevant for another teacher in another context. So we need to trust the professional judgment of teachers to be able to access continuous professional development that best meets their need and their context. Now, in relation to the first part of your question, where you said that governments want to link the government wants to link this professional learning with some system of teacher assessment or appraisal. If the government wants to do that, well, the government should ensure that professional development is available for free during work hours. If the government wants to link the two, they have to make it available for everyone.
Φαντάζομαι ότι και το ερώτημα το άλλο που μπαίνει εδώ.
And the other question that enters here, specializing what we have said earlier, what measures should be taken by the state in order to solve the problems of the teachers? Do you have anything else to add or suggest in this topic?
Yes, simple. Respect. Respect. Respect the teaching service. You know, we've seen a dramatic decline in respect for the teaching service over the last number of years. And that too is contributing to the stress and the burnout of our teachers. I'll say it again, our teachers are overworked, underpaid, and undervalued. You know, sometimes we hear governments say we thank teachers, we thank teachers, we thank teachers. No more words, no more words. In fact, we want more than thanks. We want more than thanks. We're sick and tired of platitudes.
Δεν ξέρω, πριν προχωρήσουμε σε κάποια ερωτήματα που αγγίζουν και άλλα πεδία εκτός του επιμορφωτικού, αν η Ελίνα Τσιρόγκα θέλει να σχολιάσει κάτι, επειδή είδε και τα πορίσματα της έρευνας σε σχέση με όλα αυτά τα ερωτήματα που τέθηκαν, και αν έχει κάτι να πει και από τη δική της την εμπειρία και από αυτά που έχει δει από τα δεδομένα.
From your experience, what I would like to highlight is the intensity of the request for substantial retraining, continuous education in substantial time. Irrespective of all, if we want to believe that further education is meaningful, we need to do it in a time that will be efficient and effective. If you try to educate people after working hours, it makes no sense. So we need to keep in mind this request of the teachers, substantial education and education focusing on their needs, their daily problems at schools, these problems faced by themselves, and they believe they need extra knowledge to cope with these problems. We have manpower that is... I am an economist myself, so we have manpower that needs substantial education. They don't want to get more money, they don't want to get more points or to evolve. They want to be retrained in substantial issues and to deal with the problems. And this is contrary to what they experience this very moment. That is what we have to bear in mind, because every teacher we have asked, they said, allow us to have free out of our work, continuous education to cover our personal. See people saying
Recording in progress.
In Greece, regrettably, around the world, we're seeing, as a result of the underinvestment in public education, we're seeing a narrative promulgated denigrating public schools, and thereafter the rise of privatisation in education. The reality is that our public schools are great schools, and globally, whether it's the World Bank or the OECD, neither of them, the World Bank, for example, great friends of the teacher union movement, their own reports show and their own analysis shows, for example, PISA, OECD PISA, public schools perform as well as private schools when you account for the demographic differences and the socioeconomic background of students. Public schools perform as well as private schools based on PISA and many other national testing regimes. And yet, we constantly have an attack on public schools and policies aimed at shifting students out of public schools to private schools as part of an ongoing privatisation program. This is regrettable because the consequences are far-reaching. The consequences are a deepening segregation in our schools, across our schools and in our communities, and without any improvement in educational outcomes. So the movement to strengthen public education continues, and that is why in this priority campaign for education international, Go Public Fund Education, we say no more excuses, invest in teachers, invest in public education.
Ωραία, ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Τελευταίο ερώτημα που έχουμε είναι ότι...
Last question we have in Greece in the last years, there is an increasing trend teachers to have more skills and qualification beyond basic studies, PhDs, etc., etc. The question is, we have heard from you that there is a trend to increase times of studies globally. What does that mean in reality about the quality of education of teachers and how they are going to be dealt with in the future?
Earlier, I referred to that United Nations report on the teaching profession. And in that report, and indeed consistent with our own policies, it says that all teachers should have a degree, and preferably a degree that is the equivalent of a 5-year degree over time. Now, we know in many countries, we started many, many decades ago with 2-year trained teachers, then 3-year trained teachers, 4-year trained teachers. There's a trend in many countries to have an equivalent to a master's over time. So I understand there's a tradition of extra qualifications in Greece and postgraduate qualifications. My only advice to you is defend the importance of qualifications, because without that, our profession is at risk.
Μάλιστα. Σημαντικό το μήνυμα. Και σημαντικές και οι σκιές που μένουν, να το πω έτσι.
Quite important message about the future of educational process. Well, I dare say that we should finish here with an optimistic aftertaste. No, unfortunately, we have heard that we are not alone. It is an international trend of downgrading the profession of teachers. And also we need the message to bear in mind is that we need to protect the status of teachers in society. That is the main message of this lecture. So I would like to thank Elina Tsiroga with her survey and Vangelis Gavrielatos, who has been with us once again, supporting DOE before we finish.
Teacher unions always do. We fight, we fight, we fight.
Αυτές νομίζω το μήνυμα. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ και νομίζω το μήνυμα είναι κάτι που πρέπει να μεταδοθεί προς όλους.
This is the message for everyone. We fight, we fight, we fight, and we promote all the messages, all the themes of education, and we need the support of people and we need their motivation. So we fight is the final message of this meeting today. So good night, everyone. We are expecting you to come again in our next lectures. Thank you once again to our speakers. And let's meet in the fight for a better education. Have a good night.
Κλείνουμε το stream, τελειώσαμε.
Recording stopped.
Καλό βράδυ σε όλους.
Καλό βράδυ σε όλους. Νομίζω τελειώσαμε.